Morning, everyone. Welcome to the board meeting of the Osteopathic Medical Board of California. This meeting is being held May 13th, 2021, and the time is 10:10, shortly after 10 o'clock. The meeting is occurring at various locations pursuant to Executive Order N2520, dated March 12th, 2020. Today's meeting will be conducted using the following guidelines. All participants will mute their microphone or phone during each presentation of the agenda topic. Board members who wish to provide additional comments should select the raise hand feature next to their name. This will alert the host and chair that you have comments, and I'll rely a little bit on our host to alert us if there are raised hands. At the conclusion of the discussion from board members, I will ask for public comment. At the conclusion of the discussion period, I will call for the vote, if necessary, or move the vote to the next agenda item. All in attendance should keep their comments specific to the agenda item being discussed. An opportunity for public comment for items not on the agenda will be provided. Please be advised that during this comment period, the board cannot engage in discussions or take action on any matter that is raised, except to decide whether to place the matter on the agenda of a future meeting. We will now establish a quorum. Machiko, will you call the roll, please?
Good morning. Cora Damian.
Here.
Dr. Buhari.
Here.
Dr. Jensen.
Here.
Dr. Patel.
Present.
Claudia Mercado. Denise Pines. Andrew Marino.
Good morning, present.
Good morning. We have a quorum.
With the quorum being established, we'll move on to our next agenda item. The next agenda item is meeting and public comment procedures. Public comment on items not on the agenda. During the meeting today, public comment is welcome on any agenda item as the item is taken up by the board. Under the Open Meetings Act, the board may not take action on any issues raised by public comment that are not on the agenda, other than to decide whether to schedule that issue for a future meeting. In order to allow the board sufficient time to conduct its scheduled business, the board may limit the time given to each person who wishes to comment. Please make your comments focused and relevant to the applicable agenda item. It's not necessary to repeat statements or views of a previous speaker, and it's sufficient to state that you agree. Written statements should be summarized and submitted to the board. They should not be read. The board appreciates your cooperation and assistance in meeting its legal mandate. At this time, is there any public comment on items not on the agenda?
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment for items not on the agenda, please click that Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. We're currently sharing instructions on the screen for your reference, and in the Ask field, typically in the lower right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, please type, "I would like to make a public comment," and send to all panelists. I'll pause a moment to allow the public time to access the Q&A panel and submit their requests. All right, this is the moderator. It appears we have no requests for public comment, but I do have board member Mercado has joined. And can I get a quick mic check from board member Mercado?
Hello. Good morning.
Wonderful. We can hear you. Thank you. All right. Since there are no requests for public comment, would you like me to close that Q&A feature?
Yes, I think that would be appropriate.
All right. The Q&A feature is now closed.
Okay. Seeing no additional comments, we'll move on to agenda item number 3. Agenda item number 3, review and possible approval of the minutes for January 14th, 2021 board meeting. Any discussion by board members? If not, can we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Good morning, this is Andrew Marino. I make a motion to approve the meetings from January the 14th, 2021.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Very good. It has been moved and seconded. Moderator, is there anyone requesting to public comment?
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click that Q&A icon at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. I'll pause a moment to allow the public time to access the Q&A panel and submit their requests. All right, this is the moderator. It appears there are no requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
All right, the Q&A panel is now closed.
And seeing that there was no additional comment, we'll have Machiko take a roll vote.
Cora Damian,
Yes.
Dr. Buhari,
Yes.
Dr. Jensen,
Yes.
Claudia Mercado,
Yes.
Andrew Marino,
Yes.
Dr. Patel,
Yes.
Quorum.
Okay, so the motion is carried. The meeting from January 14, 2021 minutes are approved. We'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 4, petition for reinstatement of revoked license. The purpose of the hearings today is for the board to consider a petition of reinstatement for a revoked license. This proceeding is a serious matter and proper decorum must be maintained. Please make sure that you keep as quiet as possible during the hearings and you refrain from making comments or expressions that may disrupt the hearings. Use the mute feature on your device. Your cooperation in keeping these proceedings orderly is appreciated. And at this time, I'll turn it over to our administrative law judge to go ahead and begin this hearing.
All right, this is the moderator. I have promoted Judge Julie Cabos Owen up to a panelist, and I just want to double check that this is our ALJ.
There we go. I'm present. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Thank you.
Excellent.
Give me one moment. I'm also going to promote our petitioner and our DAG up to panelists and do quick mic checks.
All right.
All right, so I have promoted our petitioner, Keith Lai. Keith, can I get a quick mic check from you?
Good morning.
Good morning, I can hear you now, thank you. All right, and then our DAG, Jane Zach Simon. And Jane, can I get a quick mic check from you?
Okay, I'm here now.
Wonderful, I can hear you, thank you.
This is Judge Cabozon. Could I get the DAG's name?
Jane Zach Simon.
Could you spell that for me, please?
Jane is the first name, Jane. Middle name Zach, Z as in zebra, ACK. Last name Simon, SIMON.
Thank you. All right. Do we have the court reporter as well?
This is the moderator. I just want to double check if our court reporter is supposed to be Justine Johnson.
That sounds right.
Okay, I don't have her in my attendee list, unfortunately.
Okay. I'm unsure of who has been assigned, but that sounds like one of our court reporters' names. I believe we're a couple of minutes early, so that may be why she has not logged in, because I believe we have it listed for OAH at at a 10:30 start time. But while we're waiting, I did log on a little bit early, so I did get some of what was going on prior to the petition. I just wanted to make sure, I did hear that there is a quorum, and I wanted to find out who is the person that will be signing the decision once it goes to decision.
That's probably me as the board president.
All right, I'm sorry, and who's speaking? I can't see.
This is Cyrus Buhari.
Okay. And then when the decision is drafted, do you prefer that I indicate in the preamble that there was a quorum, or did you wish to have the board members' names listed?
I think we can just list that there was a quorum.
Okay. I heard somebody in the background. Is that
This is the moderator. Your Honor, while we're waiting for our court reporter, if you click the layout button on your WebEx screen, there should be an option that says show all names. And that might be helpful for identifying who's speaking because it'll have their name underneath their video.
all right? Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
If I may say, Mr. Alex Kilpatrick, who is on the name, is my attorney.
All right, so we do have another. Do we have an attorney? I had a Barry Whitland.
He was not allowed because his license was in Florida. So yesterday I had to retain a different attorney.
Okay.
And I believe Mr. Alex Kilpatrick he's signed on this time.
Oh, thank you for the name. Let me go ahead and promote him up to a panelist. All right, and Mr. Kirkpatrick, can I get a quick mic check from you? Mr. Kirkpatrick, if you are speaking, you are currently muted. You'll want to make sure that you are clicking that microphone icon at the bottom of your WebEx screen. When it's green, that means you are unmuted, and when it's red, that means you are muted. So I see that you are unmuted. However, I'm not hearing any audio from your end. Let me see. Co-moderator, if we could get the oh, I don't have the instruction slides. Oh, wait, no, I do. Can we go to slide 5 real quick? And Mr. Kirkpatrick, if you are having audio issues on your device, what you can do is you can connect to the WebEx session by calling in and following the instructions on the screen right now. If you go to audio and video at the top of your WebEx screen, click switch audio, and then follow the instructions to call in. It'll allow you to connect your audio through your phone.
Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Mark Vito, the Executive Director. While we're waiting for the court reporter, if you desire, we can take some agenda items out of order. I know we have a budget update after the petition that we can take now while we're waiting, if everyone's in agreement to do that.
I think that's reasonable as long as the other people on the line don't mind listening to it.
I'm fine.
Okay, so let's we'll come back to agenda item 4 and we'll move on to 5 just now. Agenda item number 5 is the DCA budget update. We have Paul McDermott on the line.
This is the moderator. I just promoted Paul up to a panelist. And Paul, I see you're connected on your phone, so you'll need to control your mute and unmute button on your computer session.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Perfect. Good morning, Board President Buhari, Executive Officer Ito, board members, and members of the public. My name is Paul McDermott. I'm from the Department of Consumer Affairs Budget Office, and I'm currently the analyst managing the budget for the Osteopathic Medical Board. And I'm very happy to be here today to share my analysis of the board's expenditures, revenues, and the condition of the fund. And if you could please bring up the first document that we have associated with my presentation.
This is the moderator. One moment while I identify what slide number that is.
Perfect.
Is this correct?
Yeah, we can
Okay,
start
wonderful.
with that
Thank
one.
you.
Okay, so the first document we're going to be looking at is our annual expenditures and our projections for the year. And the way we read the document is from top to bottom. The first third of this document is going to consist of the salaries and benefits when it comes to personal services, and the bottom 2/3 is going to be the operating expenses of equipment, or the O&E. And as we go from top to bottom, we see a budget for personal services, salaries, benefits, everything associated with the staff of about $1.4 million. And I'm projecting by year end to have a expenditure of $1.152 million, with a savings about $248,000. So we have a pretty good savings up top when we look at the personal services. As we work our way down through all the expenditures, going from general expenses, communication, facilities, training, any of our contracts, I worked my way all the way down through this, and I'm happy to report that in the operating expenses and equipment section, we also have a savings of about $366,000. That's comprised of a $1.624 million budget, and I'm projecting to spend about $1.257. So this is good news on the spending of discretionary and non-discretionary line items. So when I take the total, if you work your way down, I take the total all the way down the bottom. We have a budget of about $3.025 million. I'm projecting to spend $2.410 million, with a savings about $614,000. That's a significant savings, and that's attributed to the way in which the board is actually spending their monies and what they're entrusted. Now, with that $614,000, that equates to about a 20% savings on the $3 million budget. So it's a pretty significant savings, and it's also a good barometer of how the money is being spent within the program. So I'd like to say that with this spending here is a solid way and a very acute way of which the money is being spent. I have no reason to believe that this trend will change any different as we go forward into the year's end. And I'm very happy with the way that these monies have been spent. And with that said, are there any questions on the expenditures the projected expenditures for the program.
Any questions? I can't see if there are any raised hands. All right. Well, thank you, Paul.
And then we can go to the second document, please. Okay, so this document is the fund condition. And the fund condition is the best way to understand it is kind of a checkbook to see where the board is and how the money is actually being spent. And the way I explain this document is this has the beginning balance of every year, it has the revenues, it has the expenditures, and has the bottom line where we are at the end of the year or the projected end of the year. And I always equate this to any business owner who wants to know where we start, what's coming in, what's going out, and what do we have left over at the end of the year. So as you read this document, we read left to right this previous year, we're in the current year, and then we read top to bottom. So two things I do want to bring, I know this, I talked about this before, but I would just want to bring it back to some attention here. In the prior year, we had a general fund loan that came back at the tune of $1.5 million. And we have that captured in the first column in 2019-20, about halfway down, you see about 1.5 million. That was a loan that was paid back. As we go back up into the revenue streams, you'll see a line item that says interest from loan. We have about $45,000 that was captured with that loan and is reported here on the fund condition. So as we look through the revenues, I have all the revenues captured there. If we now move over to the current year are projected revenues as where we stand with month 9 numbers. So these numbers are just a snapshot in time, and I'm projecting to bring in about 2.9 million with a loan going back out to the general fund, and we have the revenues and transfers of $2.7 million. As you walk your way down into the expenditure side of this document, you'll see in the current year 2021 that 2.41 million that I had from the expenditure document is captured here, and it just adds in all of our expenditures, our revenues up top, we minus out our expenditures, and as we work our way down, we have a projected revenue of income of about $5.1 million, which equates to about 7.6 months in reserves. And again, if you recall, what we look at those months in reserve, where it's important is if all functionality of getting revenues coming in has stopped, we have about 17 months of reserves to be able to operate as a board. When we look at the strength of the fund, we say a solid fund is anywhere between 6 and 12 months, and being at 17.5 months, we're looking pretty solid with where the condition of our fund. So I can say going forward, the fund is in good shape, the expenditures are in good shape, the revenues are in good shape, and I have no reason to believe that either the expenditure or the revenues will change going forward. Are there any questions with the fund?
There don't appear to be questions.
Okay.
Paul, is there anything else
No,
from your
I was just waiting.
presentation? Okay.
No,
Okay.
That completes my presentation.
Okay, well, thank you. I will now entertain comments from the public. Moderator, is there anyone from the public requesting public comment?
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click that Q&A icon at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. I'll go ahead and pause a moment to allow the public time to access the Q&A panel and submit their requests. All right, it appears there are no requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, please. I think that's appropriate. All right, thank you for comments. Nothing else on this agenda item?
No, that completes my presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much.
All right, moderator, do we have our court reporter online just yet?
Yes, we do. Let me go ahead and promote her up to panelist.
Okay, so we will go back to agenda item number 4. Go ahead. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Oh, I apologize. I was just going to do a quick mic check with our court reporter. Justine, can I get a quick mic check?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you. All right, and then can I also get a quick mic check from the petitioner's attorney, Mr. Kirkpatrick? I don't believe we were able to hear him earlier. Miss.
I'm here, Alexander Kirkpatrick.
Wonderful. I can hear you and I can see you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and turn it back over to our administrative law judge. Judge?
Thank you. All right, Madam Court Reporter, I just wanted to confirm your CSR number is 14301.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. I've already gone through that. Let's see. All right. Oh, and before we go on the record, are there any other documents? Well, let me just say this. I received a packet of documents that I'm going to mark on when we go on the record, but there was 5 exhibits initially and then a 6th with amended documents. Is there anything other than that that the board members are going to be considering, because, such as memorandum or anything, because I need to get those marked as well?
Not that I'm aware of, Your Honor. This is Jane Simon.
All right. Let's see. All right, and it sounded like when I joined earlier that someone, either the moderator or somebody else, had gone through kind of the protocols of identifying yourself before you begin speaking, and if we can continue that while we're on the record with the court reporter, so she can identify who's speaking in the record. Is there anything preliminarily before we go on the record?
This is a moderator. If I could just ask that people mute their microphones when they're not speaking. This will prevent any background noise. And that's all I need to say.
All right, thank you. All right, so why don't we go ahead and open the record. We are opening the record in the matter of the petition for reinstatement of Keith Kai Lai, agency case number 900-2020-000-247 before the Osteopathic Medical Board of California. OAH number is 2021-040-347. It is May 13th, 2021. It's approximately 10:40 a.m. and this matter was set for hearing at 10:30 a.m. today. We are holding this hearing by video conference and telephone conference via the WebEx platform. My name is Julie Cabos Owen, Administrative Law Judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings. I'm sitting with the Osteopathic Medical Board, which is convened here today to consider this petition. We need to have the members, the board members, identify themselves for the record, including a spelling of their names. Normally I would do this in person beginning right to left, but perhaps someone from the board can provide a roll call with a name and a spelling of a board member, and then that board member can indicate on the record that they're present, beginning obviously with the board president, Dr. Buhari.
I think we can probably just go down the line. Maybe I'll call out that this is Dr. Cyrus Buhari. That's C-Y-R-U-S-B-U-H-A-R-I. Maybe I'm going to go on my screen here. I'll ask Andrew Moreno. I think your audio is muted, Andrew.
My apologies. Good morning. This is Andrew Moreno. That's ANDREW, Moreno, MORENO.
All right. How about Dr. Elizabeth Jensen?
Dr. Elizabeth Jensen, Elizabeth. Last name Jensen, Jensen.
And we have Gor Adamayan.
This is Gor Adamian, Gor, first name, last name Adamyan.
And Dr. Patel.
Himesh Patel, Hemesh, last name Patel.
Claudia Mercado.
Claudia Mercado, Claudia, last name Mercado.
I think is that everyone, Machiko, as far as board members that are on today?
It is.
All right. And this is Judge Caboso, and I do confirm that a quorum of the board is present. Apologies, just 1 second. All right. If I could now have the appearances of counsel, beginning with the Attorney General's office.
Jane, Zach, Simon, on behalf of the Attorney General's office.
All right, and I do note that the Deputy Attorney General is appearing pursuant to Government Code Section 11522. And then for petitioner.
Alexander Kirkpatrick, AlexanderKirkpatrick, for the petitioner.
All right, as I indicated while I was off the record, I did receive a packet of documents that we'll be looking at today. The documents are marked as follows. The jurisdictional documents, which include the notice of hearing and license certification, are marked as Exhibit 1. The petition for reinstatement and various attachments are marked as Exhibit 2. The default decision and order and supporting exhibit package are marked as Exhibit 3. The documents related to the criminal conviction are marked as Exhibit 4. The documents regarding the other state actions in Washington and in Texas are marked as Exhibit 5. And then I also received an updated package, which I've marked collectively as Exhibit 6, which contains updated CV, updated CME documents, and additional letters of recommendation. And Ms. Simon, are you moving in any of the exhibits?
Yes, I am happy to go through them in detail, but Your Honor has just listed them all. I would move them all in evidence at this time as part of the record.
Any objection? Mr. Kirkpatrick? I'm sorry?
Objection. No objection.
Thank you. Exhibits 1 through 6 are admitted. Right. Was there any summary that the Attorney General's office wished to present?
Yes, I'll go ahead and briefly summarize the background of this case and where we are today. As I indicated earlier, my name is Jane Zach Simon from the Attorney General's office, and our office is appearing today on behalf of the people of the state of California. In this petition for reinstatement hearing, it is the petitioner, Keith Lai, who has the burden of proof to establish by clear and convincing evidence that his petition should be granted. And this means that he must demonstrate that he has been fully rehabilitated and that reinstating his license to practice as an osteopathic physician and surgeon would be consistent with the public safety and the public interest. In these cases, the starting point is that the more serious or egregious the conduct which resulted in license revocation, the heavier the burden of showing rehabilitation is. Now, Dr. Lai was licensed by this board in 1998. It's my understanding that he spent the bulk of his medical practice in the state of Washington. And at the time of the events which culminated in the loss of his license, the petitioner was living and practicing family medicine and cosmetic medicine in the state of Washington. In September of 2014, the Washington Board of Osteopathic Medicine and Surgery first summarily suspended, then issued a suspension for a period of at least 8 years. The petitioner's license and disciplinary charges were filed. The Washington action was in response to petitioner's conviction in federal court in the state of Washington on numerous criminal counts, including conspiracy to manufacture and distribute marijuana, manufacturing and distributing marijuana near a school, maintaining drug-involved premises, and a number of counts of fraud involving false documents that were created and submission of false insurance claims. It's also of note that the Washington action was also based on a number of findings that Dr. Lai violated various rules pertaining to a Washington Health Department immunization program. He hired people with no healthcare credentials to perform roles in his practice that required credentials. His office was maintained in an unsanitary condition. He didn't properly handle expired vaccines. And during the course of the criminal indictment and proceeding, Dr. Lee's DEA certificate was suspended, yet he continued to prescribe controlled substances after the DEA had suspended his certificate. He also practiced medicine after the Washington board had suspended his license. When the representatives from the Washington immunization program attempted to go to his office and obtain the vaccination after he was terminated from their program, he refused to allow them access to the facility. And likewise, when the DEA went to investigate the continued prescribing after the suspension of his certificate, he refused to cooperate. This board in California filed an out-of-state discipline case against Dr. Lai based on the events that transpired in Washington. He didn't respond to the accusation, and a default revocation was entered in February of 2016. In connection with his criminal conviction, petitioner received a 5-year sentence of incarceration after he was convicted of all of the counts against him in a jury trial. According to the documents submitted by petitioner in connection with this petition for reinstatement, he was incarcerated between November of 2014 and sometime in 2018, and then he was under a supervised release until March of 2019. His petition for reinstatement was dated on June 4th, 2020. Those are the basic background facts that bring us up to today's hearing, and I'm sure you will hear more from petitioner about his activities over the past couple of years. So I will turn this matter over to the petitioner for presentation of his case.
All right, Mr. Kirkpatrick, it's your opportunity to present the petitioner's case. Did you have anything?
No. The background stated by the Deputy Attorney General is, to my knowledge, accurate. I've only been working this matter for a day, but I believe the statement by the Deputy Attorney General is correct. It's consistent with the documentation I've been able to compile during the limited time I've had. Mostly, those facts are true, but they, first off, the accusation by the Osteopathic Medical Board filed October 19, 2015, only sought to impose discipline predicated upon out-of-state discipline pursuant to Business and Professions Code section 2305. So the board didn't, based upon that accusation, a default was taken because at that time Mr. Lai was incarcerated, and so he was unable to respond. So the default decision was entered by the board of revocation of his license. Mr. Lai does not seek to return to Washington, but he does wish to he seeks to be relicensed in California so that he can practice here. The position is basically he's paid his debt to society for the matters that occurred in Washington State. He served a 5-year term in prison. He submitted, I believe, 13 letters of recommendation from different healthcare professionals who attest to his skills and good character. And I believe the Osteopathic Medical Board should be comfortable that if reinstated, Mr. Lai would not pose a risk of harm to the public. The matter that counsel referred to, the issue of the immunization protocols and handling vaccines correctly, Mr. Lai will address, but I believe he found that to be an educational experience, and he learned from it and would not repeat that kind of conduct again either. The balance of the claims that he was convicted of those offenses in federal court, that's true, all of the offenses that counsel read off, and there's not much to be said about those except that Mr. Lai will explain that he feels those are in the past, well in the past, and he's rehabilitated himself, as he'll explain, and he has atoned for mistakes that he made in Washington, and based on that fact, his rehabilitation and the good character as testified to by his character witnesses and the, I think, approximately 13 letters of recommendation should be taken into account in evaluating whether he is of sufficient good character and rehabilitated to the extent that the board could issue him a license, even if provisional. There has to be an end to disabilities that arise from criminal conduct. There's nobody who's harmed by the events that occurred in Washington. They did not involve patients except for the issue of the immunization protocols, which, as I said, I believe he'll testify that he has learned from those. And it's not to justify the matters in Washington State, but to say that they really did not pertain to the practice of medicine at all. And that doesn't mean they're appropriate, but it does mean that there's not a patient-related issue in terms of what happened in Washington. So based on that, I think I just asked Mr. Lai to testify to some of the facts that support his petition for reinstatement.
All right, this is Judge Cabos Owen. I just want to make sure that the petitioner has his microphone unmuted.
Yes, good morning.
All right, if you could please raise your right hand and be sworn in. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and if you could please state and spell your name for the record.
Yes, my first name is Keith, Keith. My last name is Lee, Ly.
All right, counsel, if you want to inquire. Mr. Kirkpatrick?
Excuse me.
Uh,
I'm sorry. Mr. Lee, you submitted an application or petition for reinstatement of your license about a year ago. Is that correct? Can you hear me?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. And you've attached a number of letters of recommendation from quite a few individuals who know you, and knowing of the underlying facts, still were of the opinion that you should be reinstated as a physician. I hope the board has time to consider those letters. I could list them, but I don't know if that would be helpful, Your Honor, to list the letters that he has submitted.
The packet has been submitted. Everyone has copies.
Okay.
Hunter, I can't hear you. There's some really bad audio feedback when you speak now.
I apologize.
This is the moderator. If I could just remind people to please mute their microphones when they're not speaking. It's sounding like we're having some feedback where people's audio is looping on their microphone. So if you're not currently speaking, if you could please get the habit of muting your microphone. Thank you.
Madam Court Reporter, do you want me to go off the record? We're actually off the record.
Yeah, we're off the record.
Yes.
I can hear the first parts of what you're saying, but then there's massive audio feedback and interference.
All right. I can try connecting via a different audio feed. Let me just see if I can do that.
This is a moderator. I see a hand raised from Dr. Patel.
Your Honor, I noticed the feedback started when the petitioner was unmuted. I think you're okay now that the petitioner has muted himself.
Okay. So perhaps then, yeah, it sounds like it's okay now. So if we can just have people, as the moderator had indicated, mute unless you're actually speaking. I'm going to try to do the same for my microphone, otherwise you're going to hear me clacking away at my computer when I'm taking notes. So why don't we try this? Let's go back on the record. All right, we are back on, and we're going to take Dr. Lee's testimony. I'm going to mute my microphone now and allow Mr. Kirkpatrick to begin his questioning. If I do need to jump in to either rule on an objection or to come in to discuss a cross-examination, I'm going to ask that petitioner and Mr. Kirkpatrick then mute their microphones while I'm speaking, and hopefully we can get through this without all the feedback. So Mr. Kirkpatrick, you can begin.
Mr. Lee, can you hear me okay here? Mr. Lee?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, there we go. You've heard what was said by the Deputy Attorney General in regard to the burden is on you to establish by clear and convincing evidence that you are fit to be relicensed in California as an osteopathic physician. You understand that?
Yes, I do.
And you have solicited letters of recommendation from a number of physicians and other, mostly healthcare professionals, as to your present suitability. These are all dated pretty much 2019, some into 2020, that were, I think, sent in with your petition for reinstatement. These letters come from people that are known to you. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, there are actually 13 letters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them was from last year, which I initially petitioned. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 was from this year, 2021. And the majorities are physicians deals, with this year being the clinic that I've also volunteered at. That's a petition for me, yes.
Why is it important to you to be relicensed in California?
First of all, I went to school here in California. Comp was my alma mater at that time. My family, if I may just give a little background of how California came about. And again, good morning to Judge Cabos Owen and Ms. Simon, and also members of the boards. But if I may initially start back in Vietnam when I start over, and I'm trying to push this as far as I can, so I'll give you a background how I came to California. But my father in Vietnam was an engineer, and he was one of the few people that actually get to travel and be able to go to USA to get his degree at Utah State University, which time after he's done able to come back to Vietnam and become one of the most prominent civil and construction engineer that runs the whole middle part of Hue and Da Nang, which is the middle part of Vietnam. And we came from a very high qualified and high educated family. Now, the war came, the 1975, we all were trapped doing the mass exiting from Vietnam at that time. My father was jailed for 5 years because he was one of the major players in construction of the country. So by just being that alone, it's a traitor to the Vietnamese Communist Party. So he was jailed 5 years. So hence we couldn't leave the country for 5 years. We attempted almost 15 times after my father was released from prison to escape out of Vietnam by boat. So we were a boat people. The final escape, which led us from Vũng Tàu, which is the southern part of Vietnam, over to Malaysia during 1979, 1980s. During that time, the 1979, 80s, is the worst time to leave Vietnam because the whole world at that time has been so much had fed up with the mass exiting of Vietnamese to the surrounding countries. So the Malaysian government took a hold at that time to not to let anybody enter. We were when a boat approached the island, we were actually not allowed to enter, and we were rampart and tried to sink our ship. Subsequently, did not, and so we were had to stay in the water for about 3-4 days, damaging the ship so that we can't use it anymore. Then subsequently allowing us to be on Malaysian island, and we were stayed there for 6 months in a concentration camp surrounded by barbed wire. Subsequently, later on, we had to they basically put on a boat and ship us back out to ocean and tell us that, hey, you guys need to go that direction to a certain island where you guys are being held at. And upon leaving, we noticed the boat didn't have any engine, neither any food, and it was actually a boat where they're towing us out to sea and left us there to die. And that's our whole main conception of that. And there was about 200 people, including kids and women on this boat. We were lucky enough on the third night, after all the water's gone, and people around us are basically starvation. That night we had a German cargo boat in the morning surround us and kind of just watch us. That night a major storm came and we were rescued by that boat, and subsequently brought us back into Malaysian government and give her asylum to go to Germany. And I remember that time, that night when the storm came, my whole family, which was 7 of us, 5 kids, and my mom and dad, and also one more of our cousin. My dad had ties all together in a rope and saying that, hey, if we don't make through the night and the boat sank, it is better for all of us to go fast. We all drowned at one time. And I remember that instance very, very vividly. Subsequently, that night, we were rescued by the German boat, and hence we end up 6 months later back to a country camp, and then flew out to Germany. And we lived in Germany for 2 years. My dad had a good job in Germany, was the electrical engineer and the construction engineer. But my mom's heart is always in USA, and my grandmother has escaped the communists in '75. So she sponsors over to from Germany over to US, and we first arrived through sponsorship, no government help, no depending on any government subsidies, to Boston, where my uncle lives, for about 6 months, and subsequently went to California after that, and stayed in California. We came over to U.S. with basically from my dad was a very well-known, well-respected, and a well-monetized person to a basically empty-handed. We only arrived in U.S. in California with the clothes on our hand, within our body, so to speak, with not much anything else. My dad subsequently went to work as an engineer because he has degrees here. But he was working as a CAD drawer initially just to get money. All of us has to work to survive. We were a gardener, we was weeder, we cleaned houses. All the kids had to contribute to the living situation at that time. Subsequently, he able to make enough money, save enough money. We went to buy a house in Pasadena, California, and that's when I started school in high school. Subsequently, go to college at UC Irvine and had a degree at Comp, and during the 1998, and that's when I met Dr. Kirpin. Dr. Kirpin was actually my mentor and also my dean at that time. He and I had a very good relationship. I were one of the top 2 students in the class, and he was always called us in to talk to us about doing different things for the class. So I had a very fond memory of Dr. Kirpin at that time. Subsequently, after that, I basically move after graduating med school. I then went to do residency in Ohio, and subsequently went back to California to do my residency in emergency medicine. And subsequently, after during my emergency medicine career, 2 years, I didn't like the program I was in. I didn't feel that was somewhat a match for my ER state, so I decided to leave and went to Washington State, where I applied and got into University of Washington, where I did my family practice residency, and got my board certification the last two decades of my practicing family physician. In Washington, when I was there, I met a very beautiful woman, and she became, subsequently after the case, she became my wife. But before I met her, I didn't know much about her, and everything happens in a very fast sequence where I was very busy in my practice. I was growing my practice. I came from a residency program that was Sister Providence, which we mainly served the underserved in the population of Seattle region. So when I came out of that residency program, I was sought after by multiple companies, multiple hospitals, and I was working with hospitals, taking over 2 or 3 doctors who was retired. So I came in working at a clinic where instantaneously I have a very large load of patients. Subsequently, I left that clinic because at that particular time, the hospital was actually selling the clinic off to the doctors, and we no longer are employed by hospitals. And so I subsequently was able to, another clinic hired me on to be their medical director for 3 or 4 years. I was able to bring that clinic from a red to a black position, and subsequently had my own, and I start to get into more cosmetic, more fillers, Botox, but still maintaining my primary care physicians role, and I had families that are in generation I took care of, that I didn't want to and leave them. So I was doing 80-20, 80 primary care and 20 cosmetic role. And so I decided to go out, open my clinic, and that's when I went solo. I went solo practice. And when I opened the clinic solo practice, I was growing fast. So I moved.
I'm sorry, Doctor, if you could just slow down, please. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I tend to get nervous and I tend to speed up. So please stop me so I can slow down.
That's fine. The court reporter is trying to take down everything, and I want to make sure she gets everything.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. My clinic was growing quite substantially fast with both of my practices. I have two practices of which are cosmetic based and which is urgent care and also of primary care. So all within one building, but it's on separate different locations, so to speak. I was able to move back and forth, and so I moved to a bigger, larger clinic, and I was in the process of, while my house over here, these homes that which I lived in when I first bought them, and I kept them and had it rental, and I bought it close to where I work, and I keep buying house close to where I work, and those houses which I moved away from would be rented out. And
Doctor,
so,
can I interrupt you for a second? May I interrupt you, sir? We're going to run out of time at this rate, and background is interesting, but I think what the board's going to want to ask about, what we should talk about, is you were released from federal prison in about late 2018,
yes,
and you were in a halfway house or something until March of 2019, and so I really think you should focus a little more on the efforts that you took from March of 2019 forward. So that's just a little over 3 years. No, it's 2 years. I'm sorry. What have you done to establish your qualifications to be a practicing physician in California? And I'm sorry to cut you off, but I feel that you need to get into a little more of what your current fitness to practice medicine is. The background's interesting, but we know that you were the federal convictions are there. So I apologize, but I need to move along in terms of what have you done to show that you're suitable to practice medicine with safety to the public.
Sure. So as I was trying to build that up, where I practiced for 20 years.
Speak slowly, okay?
Yes, thank you. I was trying to build that up because I practiced 20 years of family practice of medicine. I was boarded. I kept my board certifications the last 2 decades. Every 10 years, we board certified. And I was recently board eligible or expired with 2019. That was my last board expiration is. And I want to take the board again, but I can't even take the board again if I don't have my license. And that's the thing that I was trying to shoot for. In either case, ever since I was incarcerated, I've been do distant CME learning, and I kept my CME up as much as I can during inside when I was incarcerated. And when I left in 2019, I ramp up my continuing education as much as I can. When the first in 2020, first part of it, I accumulated over 315 CME, and then with counting now, I accumulated over 527 hours of CME. With the requirement, as you know, the board knows 150 per 2 year cycle, 3 year cycle per se. So I try to keep myself up to date and learning as much as I can and continue with the CME courses. Not only that, I also immersed myself in medicine. So when I came out of first year, I was working under a hyperbaric chamber clinic where I was their intake. I was actually running the chambers, and also I was their safety director. So I was always intaking patients, and in California, being a hyperbaric chamber technician and also a safety director, being a medical, there's no medical license to do that. So I'm allowed to go ahead and triage patient, bring patient, and treat patient on the auspices of hyperbaric chamber treatment per se. So I was always in that. Continue with my in the practicing medicine. And not only that, I also volunteer in clinics, such as the 2 clinics that I have here. I volunteer in that basis and consulting, being that consultant, medical practice consultant, because I've done it 20 years. I help to streamline their medical records, streamline part of their practices, where and also being that I'm Vietnamese and down in Orange County, I was able to help the Vietnamese patients in terms of translating, in terms of explaining certain procedures, and also I was scribing for the clinics. So I've always continued to immerse myself in medical practices, even though I'm not licensed. I always tell people that I'm not a licensed physician, but I have 20 years of practice. This is what I could offer to you in that sense. I did, every time I have that I'm not in the clinic, I'm doing CMEs. I'm doing family practice CMEs. I'm doing emergency medicine CMEs. I stay on top of CMEs as much as I can and try to prove to you, the board, that I'm still competent over what I do, and I love what I do, and I like to be. And my goal is to practice in the reason I like to be California is my family's here. My mom is here. My dad's here. I'm back now. I've lost everything in Seattle. I have no more possessions. I came out of prison empty-handed with a bunch of debt that is I'm still carrying it now. I carry over $200,000 worth of debt because when these houses that was forfeited, it came back to me because I was the owner. So I was still responsible for their loans. So even the house sold off, but there's a deficit. The deficit was placed on me to pay for those homes. So I'm even now under the water already, 200 to 300,000 at least underwater. But I came back home here to California because this is where I'm from, and all my friends are doctors that I went to school with that are here. All my families are here. My mom and dad, they're older. My dad is 87. My mom is 72. Both has medical condition. They can't drive. So I'm back here helping them to go to doctors and helping with medical care. My sisters are here. So all my life is here in California, and I like to be here to practice here in California. This is one of the letters that's written from Dr. George Field. He states that if the board has any condition that might be imposed on me, he'll be gladly to take me in and offer me or honor that condition to help me along with my practice. Again, Comp is my school. I went there. I love that school. I graduated on the top of the class. All my friends are in Comp are still around practicing in California. And I looking back, I'm not sure why I went to Washington, but it was for the residency. But when I was there, I never changed my license plate from California to Washington State license plate until much later on, when I met my girlfriend at that time, now is my wife, who has been deported back to Vietnam with my daughter, where I haven't seen my daughter since she was 4 years old, 4 months old now. She's 7 years old. But my heart has always been California. I mean, this is where I want to be. This is my home. I want to develop a clinic here where I can take care of my community, my Vietnamese community, which I realize now that when I take my parents to doctors, they can't communicate real well with not understanding Vietnamese. And even take them to a Vietnamese doctor, they don't speak very well neither. And I'm fluent in Vietnamese. I keep myself fluent. And so there's a big, I know I can help my community a lot by being a physician, by helping people like my mom and dad to go through the process. And I know that, I know the board wants me to make sure that I'm safety in my practice, I'm safety in my knowledge, safety in my skill set, and I'm sure I've been in clinic where I came back and all the skills that I have and all the knowledge I have is still there, and I still continue forward because when I see the patient, I know exactly what they're diagnosed, I know exactly what I need to do. Family member comes to me, friends come to me, they all know that I'm back here. They call me up, ask me questions about medical. They put me in touch with their doctors. I talk to the doctors. I explain the situation to the patients. get a better understanding. So I know that I can still do this, and this is what I love to do.
Mr.
How
Kirkpatrick?
important is it? Yes, I'm sorry. I just had muted my microphone. How important is it to you, Mr. Lee, that you get a new license, be licensed in California?
It's important because at this point in time, like I have many people comes to me ask questions, because I know I've practiced 20 years and my knowledge base and my experience, and if you could go through my entire CV and see how much experience I have. I know I have a lot to offer. I have a lot to offer. I have a lot of clinical skills, clinical knowledge that I feel. I mean, I follow the law to the teeth. You know, I've made my mistakes. I learn from it, and I've served 60 months of my life in prison. I learned from it. I continue forward. It's important that I like to be just not a consultant, but able to help actually care some of these patients are in my community. That when they ask me questions, okay, what you do next? What's the next step? I will call the doctors, counsel, conference with them, explain to the patient how the procedure is. Talk to the doctor. What else can be done so we can help the patient out. I'm a patient advocate. I started a patient advocate program where patients, older patients who doesn't understand their care, calls me up, and basically I follow them and help them with their case, talk to their doctors, and coordinate care. And I don't charge for that. And typically, a patient advocate, they do charge for that. I don't charge for that. Those are what I like to do, and that's doing without a license. I love doing that. And I know it's in my blood to continue forward to take care of patients, to take care of the Vietnamese patient, of which I love to do. I mean, communication, and I see from this perspective of patients. When I was a doctor in Seattle, I don't see, but now I'm on the other side and seeing how this is so important of taking care and understanding the patients and knowing their needs, their language speaking, and I know I could do a lot. I could do much more for my Vietnamese community.
Have you fully completed all of the obligations under the federal criminal convictions? In other words, any probation or parole? You're completely done with that, aren't you?
Yes, correct. I've my 60-month sentence. I served the whole 60 months in the federal prison. I should get a 10% off on a good term, but these past 5 years or so, prisons has been we were not giving the 10% off. We were kept all the way to the end, and as a matter of fact, to the halfway house. And I was supposed to have a 4 years supervised release, but during the 9 months that I was on supervised release, I petitioned to the judge to be off so I could apply for my license back, and she agreed, and basically I was off early on probation because of good behavior and also of my case. The judge that ended my probation early, 9 months out of 4 years, was the same judge that sentenced me, and my sentence was 60 months. Mandatory minimum. It was a minimum sentence that the judge said I would prefer to give you much less, but because your case, I can only go to 60 as a minimum I can give you. I would prefer to go below the sentence of minimum, but I can't do that.
But you're not under any disability as in regard to the federal government. You don't have any ongoing supervision or parole at this time, do you?
No, I don't. I'm off from probation complete for the past since March of last year.
Now, your license was also suspended in Washington State, correct?
That's correct.
Do you have any intention to seek reinstatement of that license at this time?
No, I don't intend to go back to Washington.
The same question as to Texas. Do you intend to seek relicensure in Texas at this time?
Yes, I am seeking a relicensure in Texas because I used to practice in Texas. I also have family in Texas. my immediate family is here. My distant family, I have a cousin who are a physician in Texas. When I came out, California did not allow me to apply for licensing when I'm on probation. However, Texas is different. Texas allowed me to apply for their relicensing process in Texas right away when I came out, and I went through that process, and I'm currently in process of relicensing with Texas. Also.
So that's pending in Texas. Is that correct?
That's right. That's pending in Texas.
All right. I don't think I have any more questions of the Mr. Lee at this time.
This is Judge Cabos Owen. I'm going to go ahead and invite cross-examination. Why don't we begin with the Deputy Attorney General, and then if any board members have questions, we'll go through those. So starting with the Deputy Attorney General.
Dr. Lee, I apologize. I had a little bit of an audio issue. Could you tell me again what is this? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Can you tell me what is the status of your Washington license?
The status now, it is a suspension for 8 years.
And are you planning to seek reinstatement of that license?
I am not planning to.
Now, you indicated that you were working as a hyperbaric medicine technician, correct?
That's correct. And also safety director.
And how long were you in that role?
I was there for about a year, about 14 months or 15 months.
And what were one of your letters, and that's at page 13 of the exhibits, is a letter from Dr. Huang, and it states that you are enjoying direct patient care. Could you tell us what direct patient care you had in that role?
Yes, it's actually from a Barry Jacobson. And so direct patient care at that time is when patients call and ask us if they qualify to be in a hyperbaric chamber. We have a list of conditions that they are qualified for. And then we basically, I do the intake, I take their history, their medications, their surgical histories, and their current conditions, and make a chart of it. And subsequently, there's two things. They will bring a prescription from a doctor saying that they are authorized to be using hyperbaric chambers, or they called in themselves and they wish to be hyperbaric chamberized, so to speak. So then after that intake and from criteria that I set, I would bring them back to their chambers and I would give them the treatment themselves. During the treatment, 90 minutes, 60 minutes, two atmospheric, 1 atmospheric, depending on their conditions. Let's say if you have a head injury, I would put you about 1.8 atmospheric pressure. If you're in there for acute hearing loss, I put you at 2 or that nature. And subsequently after treatment.
May I just ask another question, because I think we get the general idea of what you were doing in the interest of time here. I want to move on. I'm going to ask you, do you have the exhibits in front of you?
Yes, I do.
Can you turn to the page that is marked 6 in the bottom right-hand corner? That's the personal statement that you submitted in connection with this petition.
6, okay. Personal statement, okay. Yes. On 6/2/2020?
Yes. Down at the bottom of the page of your personal statement, you indicate that you got into your situation when you ran afoul of the law because you were blinded by the love and trust that you had in your wife. And now that was is that your position today, that that's how you got into this?
Yeah, I would like to.
No, I just asked a question and I want you just to answer it, sir.
I take responsibility. I take responsibility for all my actions, and the house which I rented out, okay, I have no direct participation in these growth activities. Neither I have benefited any kind of monetary from them.
Now, doctor, let me just ask another question.
Sure.
That's the position that you took in your defense in your criminal case, correct? That you were not an active participant, correct?
Yes, but I take full responsibility for my actions.
Okay, but that was a position that was completely rejected by the jury that convicted you on all counts, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
And when the judge sentenced you, the judge told you explicitly that he did not buy your story about being blinded by love and somebody who just trusted the woman he loved, correct?
That's correct.
And the judge told you that he felt that you had lied to the jury and you were lying to the judge, correct?
Mm. I take my position and I take full responsibility of what happened.
Okay. Now, I'm also going to ask you to look at page 16 of the exhibits. And this is a letter of reference, a character letter from Dr. Mangubat. Do you remember that letter?
Yes, I do.
Did you talk to this? Is this a friend of yours, someone you've known professionally for some time?
Yes, he was my when I was doing cosmetic in conjunction with my primary care. He was one of my mentor in liposuction, and he was the president of the American Academy of Cosmetic Surgery. And when I when I contact him, yes.
Let me ask another question then. This doctor says, I was surprised when he called me and divulged his unfortunate situation of being duped by a woman he loved, having a daughter by her, and them finding out that she was running an illegal drug operation on his rental properties for which he was charged, arrested, convicted, and served 5 years in prison. Is that what you told this doctor when you contacted him and asked for a letter of reference?
This is that is what I contact and tell him, because he wouldn't know anything about me. Yes.
Now I looked through, you submitted a long list of the continuing education activities that you've engaged in over the past several years.
Yes, ma'am.
And I looked through that list and I did not see any coursework in professional ethics. Did I miss that?
Yes, there's actually seven hours of continuing medical education in ethics. That was given
Can you point to us in the documents where that is?
Yes, I can do that. If you look at 2020, under K, ethics, that's one ethics.
I'm sorry, which page is this on?
That would be, in my document, that would be the CME page number 4.
And which number is it on that page?
That was a K. And then, so in 2020, if you look under year 2020, it said, say, total CME 226. It has under D, E, F, and also K.
But okay, let's look at D. That the title of that course, the 1-hour course, is Emotional Intelligence, correct?
That's correct.
And when you say ethics, does that mean that it qualifies for continuing education in that general category?
Yes, that's according to what the text is requiring me to do.
Let me ask you, did you take any course that the subject matter of the course is professionalism and ethics?
I did not.
Now, you were found by the Washington board to have practiced on a suspended license, correct?
That was not found, that was alleged, and I did not have adjudicated for that. We were in the process of going to adjudication when my case came about. I had the full understanding from my attorney that we deny all charges at that point in time. So there was the prescription that was written at that time was not a prescription for narcotics.
Doctor, let me just ask you to listen to my questions and answer them. I'm going to ask you to look at page 170.
I don't, page 8 or 170. I don't think I have that package.
That's in the big package of materials that was submitted, that was sent to you by my office several weeks ago.
The only package I have is a package I initially sent in, and a second package what I sent to myself, and it was sent back to me by Mr. Spark.
Okay.
This is Judge Cabos-Owen. What exhibit are we looking at?
This is exhibit, it's exhibit 5A2, and that's the Washington final decision.
Thank you.
Have you seen the Washington final decision, sir?
I do not have the package in front of me for that final decision, but I know what you.
I will represent that my office sent the petitioner all of the exhibits a couple of weeks ago my paralegal tells me that the email was opened. It was sent as a file secure attachment.
I don't have.
This is Judge Cabos-Owen. I'm sorry, Mr. Kirkpatrick, do you have a copy?
Yes, I'm not sure. My exhibits aren't numbered because I just got into this case yesterday, but I think I've got an ex parte order of summary action by the state of Washington Department of Health, and it's dated, if that's what counsel is referring to, 22 September 2014. That was suspension based on the federal conviction.
No, there is a subsequent final order by the Washington board that has factual findings. If Mr. Lee doesn't have them, in the interest of time, I will move on. They are part of the record.
I have other materials, counsel. I apologize. I have other stuff. I wasn't sure what you're referring to.
I'm not going to ask the petitioner questions if he doesn't have the documents. Do you remember, sir, during your sentencing, that the criminal judge made comments that he felt that you had lost your moral compass?
Yes, I did.
And he made some suggestions about steps you might take in the direction of regaining that moral compass. Do you recall that?
I do not recall that, but I remember he said a moral compass, but I don't remember what he said, what she said. It was she said.
And can you tell us today what steps you have taken in order to regain your moral compass?
Yes. First of all, I would not delegate or entrust anybody of my critical decision. I will not keep myself busy enough where I would not understand or see the details of things and be more vigilant of my decision making, where I would better understand what my decision is and what my decision can affect other people that surrounds me. Of affecting people that I love, to affect people of my patient, affect people of my legal stature. I didn't realize how my decision affect a lot of people, and I come to realize how important and urgently that's patient safety, the health of patients, the safety of my family, safety of people around me are all based on my decisions. And that is, to me, I grew up since that time. I'm a different person. I'm not the same person back then as I am now. My decision making is totally different. I think things too much more carefully now. I'm more mature, and that this will never ever happen again.
I don't have anything further.
This is Judge Cabo-Sowen. Did any of the board members have any questions? If so, if you could just identify yourself after you unmute and ask your question.
Hi, this is Gordon. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Please explain to the after what happened. Why and how do you feel the right to engage in patient care after your license was taken away?
Yes, because now that I'm not a physician, I'm on the patient side. And when, in particular, I'm a patient myself. I have 2 back surgeries and have multiple medical issues that I'm undergoing right now. Like also with my parents, my mom and dad, of which I take them to the doctor's office, and I see from a perspective of patients, how the patients are treated, how the doctors are treated, even though they're Vietnamese, but yet they're treating my parents as a number. They don't respond back to their calls. They don't explain what's the lab tests are. They don't explain the diagnosis. Don't give them an idea of what to expect. And that's only come from my parents. Comes my friends, come in my close relatives. They all turn to me to ask me questions, and then I'm on the patient end looking back at the doctor, and I see this, and I see this in myself before too. When I was a doctor, how careless I was in that part of time where I wasn't paying more attention to my patient and able to meet their needs. Now I'm a patient, and I come to doctors, and most doctors, when I come to the office, they turn and type in the computers. They don't talk to you, don't see you eye to eye, and I've seen the back of the head. And likewise, when you call the receptionist really blow you away, blow you off, and the doctor never know about it. But it's that kind of practice that I see from patient side of, I know now what I should do to better my practice, to better the way I should treat patients, and to better the way that I should conduct myself as a physician, and also to care my patients.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions from board members?
Yes, Your Honor. This is Andrew Moreno. I have a question for the petitioner.
It's really difficult to hear you, Dr. Moreno.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Lee. I'm interested in understanding, as you stated in your testimony earlier to the board, that you take responsibility for your actions. And part of my job as a board member is to keep an open mind, which I am duty bound to do. But I must say I'm having a difficult time understanding what is it specifically you're taking responsibility for, because I did review your packet, and you included in there the transcripts of your sentencing hearing, where the judge and the court, yourself and your attorney at the time, went through a history of what occurred. And as the government's attorney mentioned, the judge themselves stated that they had a hard time believing that what you were saying was true. So I'm wondering if you could help me, if you could be very specific and tell me what is it specifically you take responsibility for, and if you could speak specifically to whether or not you had knowledge of the manufacturing and the distribution of marijuana that was occurring in those homes. If you could please speak to that.
Thank you, Mr. Moreno. Okay, the responsibility that I take, and I again, every decision I make in my life is my own decision, whether it's through my heart, through my head, and I take full responsibility. That's my decision. Now, a decision where my wife or my girlfriend at that point in time, she takes over the house and take care of the house and do all the responsibilities. That my responsibility should be that I should be the one that's more detail on her and say, okay, I need to know what you're doing. Okay, I didn't. That's my responsibility. I should do that. I'm the owner of those houses. I should be the one that's actually be responsible for everything that's happened. So in taking responsibility, I take responsibility for all the decisions I make, including her decision of growing the house. But it's my house, so I should be responsible for that. And I did. I take responsibility. I served time for that. I served 60 months for that, of my life, for that decision. And I take the responsibility, and I agree with the court on their decision and the jury on their decision, and I need to move on. I mean, I can't go back and redo what I did in the past. I just need to move on and own up to my decision making, everything I do, and don't do it again. Or don't do, meaning be specific enough that I don't delegate anything to anybody without understanding exactly what they're doing, and also to make sure that I'm involved in every aspect of my life, and not to have people just go, just go and just do their own stuff, and I trust in what they do.
So is it fair to say that you were aware of what was occurring in these homes, and that you were participating in these events, in the growing and the manufacturing of the marijuana? Is that what you're saying, that you're taking responsibility for?
I take responsibility for all my actions. I was indirectly. I never benefit from it. I never was there growing. I didn't do any of those things. But because I own the house, I'm responsible for it.
The transcripts do state that the court stated that the individuals that you reportedly rented to stated to the court in their own testimony that you were there in the home, that you assisted with the planting of marijuana. Is that accurate?
That is not accurate. That is not accurate. Okay. And also I remind you that if we go back to court proceeding, those people that came on the witness stand against me are the growers of that property. None of them had any time. None of them had any charges brought on them at all. I was the only one, and my wife was get charges.
Let me ask you this. How do you respond to the documents that you filed with the board that stated that after the home, your properties were burned, that you filed false insurance claims with your insurance company? How do you respond to that?
Yes, the house did burnt. That's how I initially started getting into the case, because one of the homes that was rented to the renters burnt. They called me when I was in my clinic. So when I came through, I had to file a claim after that to fix my home to get re-rented. So if I filed a claim to fix a home which was illegal and I was charged on it, I filed an illegal claim.
Let me ask this question then.
Sure.
As you're stating to the board that you were not aware of what was occurring in your properties, and then to hear the judge say, when you heard the judge say that they didn't believe what you were saying was the truth, from your perspective, believing that what you're saying is the truth, how did that make you feel? How did you take that?
I own up to it. I own up to the decision. I accept the decision. I move on.
don't have any further questions. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Are there any other questions from board members?
Yeah, this is Cyrus Buhari. I had just a couple of questions. Mr. Lee, one thing is I sort of agree with what the question that Andrew Moreno asked with regard to the insurance files. You had filed you filed those insurance claims, correct?
To recover my house to fix, so I can re-rent it out. Yes, I did.
There were items listed on the insurance claim of things that were in the house that were stated didn't exist, and from pictures that the fire department took of the properties, those items weren't seen there. How can you explain that?
Yeah, to my knowledge, the items that existed was there. Now remember, I rent this house to these growers, of which time they have removed everything from the house. The bottom of the house was empty. The top part of the house is the whole grow operations. So when I rented out, it was there. When the fire department got there, 6 months after the incident happened, it wasn't there.
The other question I had is with regard to practicing after the license was suspended or in the process of being evaluated. It was the DEA license that was suspended when you continued to prescribe medications. Can you explain that?
Yes, yes. So with that, the prescribing medication is actually the prescription that came through my fax machine, and these are prescriptions that's already had automatic refill, and we sign off those prescription for patient to get medication, and that's what they call it, practicing medicine. It was a prescription that I sign off on a fax machine so that patients get 6 months or a year refill so that they could find another physician. And hence that was called practicing medicine.
Thank you. I have no additional questions.
Can I add something to that also, please? My practice of medicine, as we're called by the state of Washington, is not. I stopped doing medicine as soon as my license was emergency halted, so to speak. Right after my case, I was convicted. The Washington State basically summarily emergency stopped my license practicing. I see 30 patients a day. From one day, they said I could practice, and the next day I can't practice anymore. They said 24 hours. Basically, hey, you're not going to practice. I have patients scheduled full a month ahead of time. I have patients are prescription that needs to refill. Acute patients that I turn all the way to different doctors as much as I can the following day. And these prescription comes into my, I have many prescription comes into my fax machine that my nurse, I authorize them to stamp and sign off so that these patients get filled. Prescription fill as much as possible. 6 months a year out, I give 6 months a year out prescription, and I send them letters saying, please, in my circumstances, I cannot see you anymore. So it's within 24 hours, my practice is closed down from 30 patients a day to 0. And I'm a responsible person. I care for my patients. I see them. I don't. From seeing patients to 30 patients to 0 with no prescriptions, I basically sign off a fax prescription, and that's called practicing medicine.
This is Dr. Jensen. I had a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
It was brought up by the Deputy Attorney General that there were no courses that you took in ethics. Can you tell me your thought process on that, or if you considered that to be something that you should take some courses on or do some work on after the incarceration? And
yes, I did. To elaborate, I did try to. When I came out, I called the Washington State and asked them if I could take any ethic courses to restart my license. I mean, I said that I'm not going to go back to Washington State because it's not planning to. But when I came out, I had a thought about it, and so the Washington State said, "Hey, you're under suspension, so you are not allowed to take any course at all until your suspension is lifted, until you go from the board, and they will tell you what ethics course to take." So I went ahead and took these ethics courses on my own over in Texas when I applied to Texas, and I did look into more ethical courses. But Texas required me to take some of these courses that I took. 7 hours is that's all they need. And I did look at the PACE program for the ethical courses, and I want to take those courses. But at the time when I presented to the Washington State, they said you can't take any ethics courses. No course. You can't take any courses until you go in front of the board, and they will tell you what course to take. So I have made many attempts to. Like all the CMEs, I attempt to take as much courses as I can, trying to get myself in the medicine pace. But I'm gladly and willing to take as much ethics course as you want me to take, and I have no problem doing that. I want to get my license back. I want to practice medicine. I will do everything in my power, based on what the board wants me to do, to regain my license.
This is Judge Cabozon. Are there any other questions from board members?
Dr. Patel here, Himesh Patel. I have a question. Just circling back on Dr. Buhari's last question regarding why you practiced medicine after your license had been suspended. I know you said that they would call filling prescriptions practicing medicine, but I do consider that practicing medicine. Was it that you just weren't aware that you were practicing medicine, or did you intentionally continue to practice medicine after it was suspended? I know that you had a responsibility to your patients, but it was the order from the board that you shouldn't practice, but yet you did.
To answer your question, thank you, Dr. Patel. At that time when I was signed prescription, I did not realize signed prescription is to practice medicine. When I, in my judgment at the particular time, practice medicine, seeing patients, prescribing new prescription, seeing them in office, diagnosing, treating them. Many sign prescriptions, so they have 12-month supplies or 6-month supplies while they find their doctors. For me at that particular time, I did not feel, and again, I should have known better not to sign the prescription. But at that point in time when I was going through the process, when my life was falling apart, I did not feel that was part of not practicing. I thought signing refill was not a practicing medicine.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. I had an additional question. I know you said it several times that you accept responsibility for your actions. I just want to clarify, you had no knowledge that the properties you had were marijuana grow houses. Is that what you're saying?
I had no knowledge until the fire department called me and said there was growing activities in your house. There was a fire. Yes.
One more question. Why is it that you want to practice medicine? Oh, before I ask that, when was the last time you practiced medicine?
If you say practice, meaning writing prescriptions, diagnosing, examining patients, in particular writing prescription for a patient to go to pharmacy to get prescription filled. I advise a lot of my patients, about my family members and my friends every day. They call me up, ask questions about medicine. So I never stop practicing medicine in that sense, in the sense of giving advice of what they should do, holding our hand to the process of early diagnosed cancer, getting second opinion. I never stop practicing medicine that way.
I guess I can clarify. I meant, when did you last practice medicine with an active license?
An active license. That would be 2014.
And why is it that you want your license reinstated?
Because so that I could practice medicine legally and fully in the scope that I was trained to be the last 20 years. So that I could see patients, get their sign, symptom, diagnose them, write prescription, follow up, seeing their family members, seeing their kids, seeing their elderly parents, able to explain what the process is, This is. I mean, I never chose any other profession except medicine. That's what I was brought up to be. So in practice, medicine is in my blood. From the first day when my grandfather was diagnosed having a burst appendix and he was about to die, when the surgeon went in and operated, and he came back and lived the next 15 years fine. From that point on, I know practice medicine is what I want to do, and I never stopped practicing medicine, in a sense of advising patients at this point in time. Writing prescription up to 2014, when I was still in clinic, writing prescription before my summarily emergency suspension of my license after coming out of the convicted case. I was still writing prescription. My case started 2012, and my suspension did not start in 2014. So all throughout the whole time, during my case of 2 years, I was still practicing writing prescription.
Then my last question, Dr. Lee, you did mention you're in quite a bit of debt, that you're pretty much under the water is what you said. I just wanted to ask, is your interest in getting your license reinstated more due to financial reasons or more for the love of your profession?
It's for love of my profession. This debt matter, I could bankrupt out. I am bankrupt this point in time. I could bankrupt this debt and remove those debts. So that's not part of why I want to go back to medicine. It's because that's what I do every day. I get calls from my family members. I get calls, everybody. Once they know I'm back here, they call me to ask medical questions, ask me to call into their doctors. After they see their doctors, to call and talk to their doctor to explain the process better to the patients. So it's always in my blood. I always practice medicine. One day I don't practice medicine.
This is Judge Cabezon. Do we have any other questions from board members? Right, and are there any questions in redirect?
No, Your Honor, no redirect.
All right, and anything further from the Deputy Attorney General?
No, Your Honor.
Hold on, let me just make sure I have all the evidence addressed. I think I do. All right, so is there anything further from petitioner in your case in chief?
No, Your Honor.
All right, I believe I have all the evidence in. So the matter is submitted and we are off the record.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have an ending time of 12:04, Madam Court Reporter.
Yes, Your Honor, with a total page count of 53 if you needed to know.
Yes, thank you. And then do you need any spellings?
I do. Give me one minute. I believe a lot of these are just going to come from the character reference letters. So the first one I have is a Dr. George Field.
That would be F-I-E-L-D-S.
And George is common spelling G-E-O-R-G-E.
Correct.
Okay. I believe there was a Dr. Huang.
Yes, that is H-O-A-N-G.
May I say something about Dr. George Field?
We're just doing some spellings right now.
Okay.
And we're off the record.
Yes.
Barry Jacobson.
J-A-C-O-B-S-E-N, and Barry is with B-A-R-R-Y.
Thank you. Dr. Mango I'm gonna chop this up. Dr. Mango, Mango.
I
Excuse
can
me,
give
go
you
back.
the MANGUBAT.
Thank you. Okay, the answer was that by Mr. Lee, that he got a package. Initially it was sent, and the second package it was sent back to me by a Mr. Spark.
Sparks, SPARKS.
Thank you. That is all I can find right now. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. I believe now the board will be going into closed session to deliberate.
Okay, so at this time, the meeting will now adjourn to closed session for the purposes of hearing deliberations and disciplinary actions. After the conclusion of that closed session, we'll return the meeting to open session. So,
And you're on. I apologize. I did not
That's
mean to
okay.
interrupt you.
That's okay.
Am I finished for today? Do I need to come back at any point?
I don't believe so. When after closed session, the decision's not being announced today, correct? We're going to be issuing the written decision later.
that's correct.
All right. So no, you're excused, Madam Court Reporter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. Let me go ahead and get the session ready for closed session. Give me one moment. I'm also going to pause the recording.